Hello, class. This is the replacement lecture that I've been trying to create for a couple days now on writing a training outcome based on our goal and delivery tool. So at this point, we've been focusing very much on writing down the steps and completing the process to collect information. We've been doing data collection. And so our goal right now for this particular week is to define the performance training outcome related to our tool, and actually to move to the next piece of that, which is really identifying what are the questions or the assessment measures that we're going to be using for our projects. So I'm going to kind of go through this process, and we're going to look at our goal, and we've already kind of done this already in our conversation in class, but we're going to take a little more formal process of it today. So we have a goal statement, and when we're looking at our goal, we're trying to determine whether or not it fits into one basic three performance types. So is it something that's cognitive, something that is skill-based, or something that is effective? Each one of those is going to be have an impact on how we deliver our instruction, and also how we assess our instruction. And so, like I said, since our tool is online, we can't do some of the basic things you would with a face-to-face class or even a hybrid class where you're going to see the person. So it's really essential that we very much focus in on what we want the learner to be able to do at the end, based on a training perspective. So this is, we move beyond just the collecting from an instructional perspective. We got our task, we knew all the components. Now what we're trying to do is figure out what do we want them to do by the end of the training. And so if we look at things in those three main structures, so if it's cognitive, which is really knowledge collection, we're looking at those as one of three different things. And I want you to look at your outcomes in your training under these three guidelines. So one is whether or not it's cognitive or knowledge based. So is it verbal knowledge, where they're just trying to recall facts, or declarative knowledge, where they're just presenting something as information? The Constitution was signed in 1776. Or the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, or those are declarative. Those are facts that we're stating. The plants have chlorophyll. That is a statement of fact. So if that's our goal of our training, then we would think about this as a knowledge-based item, but we're looking at verbal knowledge. The next kind of knowledge is knowledge organization, and how the information and concepts are mentally arranged. And we think about this very much as when we're thinking about procedures. So if we're doing something that there is a set process for, you do A, B, and C in a particular order, that's actually our focus, and that's what the learner should be able to do by the end of it. So they may be performing a physical task. They might be actually going and putting the tire on a bicycle, or putting the wheel on a bicycle, but there's still steps involved in the process. So although there's a physical activity, the primary focus of it is a knowledge recall. So basically, what are the procedure, the arrangement that they're doing with it? We also, the last one that really is a little more challenging is a metacognitive strategy. So basically, are we taking and making cognitive decisions, rule-based decisions on different resources? So we're given a particular situation, and then we're making actions based on that. Sometimes those fall into nice ideal situations for scenarios. So basically, is there a deeper thinking that's involved in the process? So we're going to be looking at the goal statement that I have here. Okay, oops, I've jumped ahead. So cognitive, and now the other one is skill-based. So is the goal, is the purpose of our training something that is skill-based or psychomotor, physical in nature? Okay, so actually where practice would improve the performance of the skill. So, is it a compilation of, is it a routine that you go through, development and a procedure, that's linked together? Think about it like a baseball player, where you go through, but you get better. I mean, the key part with this is, does practice improve the likelihood of success? Okay, so automaticity is when we're looking at the ability to perform this task in a consistent manner. Okay, so that's going to show our success. Like I said, if you're doing a golf swing, or if you're typing. So the more you practice this, the better you will get at it, okay? So, or the more you practice a routine, the better you'll get at it. But it all comes down to the practice of the process, not the thinking of the process, not knowing the steps, but the actual physical practice of it, okay? If this is something that I'm building what they generally call a muscle memory on doing something, that is something that generally falls into the physical psychomotor component, okay? Those are generally skill-based, that they fall into those things where I'm trying to build a skill, okay? That could be something even with how I communicate with someone. Is it someone that I can build those skills in the way that I talk, or the language that I use? That's what I'm trying to do. The more that I practice it, the better I will get at it. And then the last one is actually our affective, or these are generally called the attitude focused items. And how is the person feeling? A feeling, attitude about the learning, about self-efficacy, perception about the ability to perform, or a goal and setting. The idea is that we're looking at what that person is feeling, and that ability to change that. Is there something that's motivation associated with it? So, things like smoking cessation is one of them. Healthy eating, change of diet, particular behaviors that are changing of someone's attitude towards something. And we actually measure those different than we measure the other two, affective and psychomotor, knowledge and psychomotor, because the fact is that those sometimes require a longer period of time to make changes than a knowledge or a psychomotor. Because the idea that someone changing, you could actually ask them to give their preference on something, but that doesn't mean there's long-term change. And really, if we're doing affective, we're looking at a long-term change. So we're going to look at something, in our case, we have a goal. I've written up a goal statement for a particular project, okay? So we're going to look at this goal statement, and we're going to figure out what type of need is associated with it. So the goal is, given a store shelf with currently folded, stacked, and organized shirts, the trainee will remove a specific shirt, open the shirt to full display view, then fold and return the shirt back to the original stack position so that the stack of shirts looks like it has not been changed. Okay, so do we think that this is something that is cognitive or knowledge-based? Do we think that there's something sort of physical action that's associated with it where I'll practice it and get better at it? Or am I changing an attitude towards something? And if this was our Adobe Connect session, I would be pausing for this, but we'll kind of go through this. So when we look at this, let's figure out, is this something where there's a procedure involved with it, that I need to know that procedure, okay? And is it that I'm going through this procedure step by step, and that is going to actually make it so I can be successful? Or is this something where I need to, get into the motions of doing something, where, I will get better at it by doing some physical action, okay? And then the last one is, am I trying to change the attitude towards? So it's not that I have an attitude towards the shirts. I want to do my job, and I guess that would be an effective component, but that's not really the goal of this. It's not like I'm going to get better at the actual folding process. So it's not like I need to build a skill, focusing a skill. It's really more about the idea of a cognitive thing of, can I take and follow a procedure to make sure that I get a repeated results, okay? So in our case here, it is knowledge, it's organizational, okay? How do I, really organize the information and put into concepts mentally? What am I trying to do, and put this in an organizational process? And the way the element that we're extracting from this is really the returning of the shirt back to its original stack position. That's what our main focus is. That's what we want to take away with this. Although we're learning about the idea of, folding the shirts, and we're looking at the organization process, our final goal, our real resulting component of this, is returning the shirt back to its original stacked position. So we want to take and look at what is the process that's associated with that. And we'll look back at the steps that we did, that we collected from our expert, and we're going to look at those steps, and that's going to help us to meet that process. Okay? So let's look at this in an extension of that same goal again. Okay, so we've got our goal statement, okay, and the idea that we're trying to return the shirt back to the original stack position. Uh, if we needed to rewrite this as a training outcome, what will we look at if we're thinking about the knowledge organization, how it's to be organized, okay, and how will we translate this goal into a knowledge recall performance that that could be completed online, and that's the real essential part. Could be completed online because we're building learning objects. Okay, so the idea that the person is not going to have the option of doing this in front of us in a class session. So if that's the case, then I need to look at what can I do person do to demonstrate to me that they can do this process. And since it's a process, do I need to actually physically have them do the steps, or do I need them to be able to identify the steps associated with the process? So if that person can go and say, okay, part A, I remove the top shirts that are sitting above the shirt that I want, flip them over onto its top, extract the shirt that I want, get the shirt out, open the shirt up, and then refold it with the arms underneath and the back folded underneath, and then place it back into the stack and place the shirts that I originally flipped over back onto that existing shirt. If that's the procedure that I need to follow in order to accomplish that goal, returning the stack back to its original position, then that's the procedure I'll use. So in that case, I need to think about, well, what would I do to show that online? If it's a process, then the person just needs to be able to identify the process associated with it, or to follow the process, or to be able to identify the components of the process. So if we take our goal and rewrite that as a training outcome, we look at same basic components that we started off with. So we're given a store shelf, and it's currently folded, stacked, and organized shirts. Okay, so we have those components in there. Okay, the trainee will be able to identify the correct procedure. So the first thing that we need to have is if they're going through a procedure, is that they can identify the correct procedure to do this. If there's things that are outside, if they do things in an incorrect order, then they're not going to be successful. So we want to make sure they can identify the correct procedure. And the other part that goes with this is we're in our training objective, we aren't highlighting everything, but we're highlighting key elements. Okay, so here the select procedure to remove a specific shirt, then select the process to correctly folding the shirt and returning it back to the stack position. So the idea is that it's not just a matter of the physical actions of doing it. They need to know the order in which to go in to retrieve a shirt, and then once they've retrieved a shirt, to refold it and return it back to where they found it in the exact position according to the way it looked like, before. I mean, this could be a photograph. So if we were doing this in a performance outcome that we want to see the result, we could actually say that we want them to do it in accordance to a particular photo. Okay, but they don't actually have to be able to do it in front of us in order to show their success. They can actually select the procedure, because that's what we're looking at, is do they know the process? So if we're going to take this and now translate this into your own process, okay, so we have a short example here, which is like stacking the shirts, and really the process was we're looking at our goal. The goal was for them to be able to retrieve a shirt in such a way that they could restack it back again, and it would be the same as if they had never touched it. Okay, and so we're going to take that same process, and I want you to look at your process, your outcomes, and your goal, and I want you to write a training outcome. Okay, and the training outcome, like as I had done with our goal statement here, should meet the same requirements of the goal, but we're focused on the idea of what needs to be done in a knowledge level, a psychomotor, or physical procedure, or if it's effective. And like I said, from the class, we don't really have anybody who's effective domain change. We're really focusing on the psychological. The procedure or the task associated with it, and then we're also focused on the idea of what is the person going to be able to do. Okay, so I want you to look at your goal and rewrite your goal as a training outcome that goes right below your goal statement. So in your text storyboard, you're going to be writing at the very top of it your goal statement. That's already there. Then right below that, I want you to create a new item that's called training outcome, and that training outcome is going to be guiding what we'll do with our next process, which is actually figuring out what the assessment is. So the process for this week is to be able to create your training outcome and to think about, is it fall into what level of knowledge or psychomotor or effective? And like I said, really from what you guys have focused on for this class, the topics for this class, they really do fall much more into the knowledge level, but I want you to be able to identify those things. Okay, figure out where it falls into that. What kind of things are the knowledge? What is the process that the person is going through? Okay, and then write your project that way. And if you look inside of our course, you'll see that we have a discussion for this week that is focused on rewriting your goal statement as a training outcome. And then the next part of that is going to be the next step is, if you want to work ahead for this, is to actually write 2 questions based on the instructional elements inside your course. So look at all the different tasks that you have identified. Select 2 tasks that are in your series of steps. And I want you to write 2 questions. So 1 question for each of the steps, and it can be on the step itself or the why information for the step, because that's both important. Okay, write those up, because those are going to be 2 elements that we're going to be using for assessment of our project. So as the learner goes through the instruction element, then they come to the assessment element or the assessment portion, and at that assessment portion, that is where they're going to be performing whatever questions we have. Okay, and I have a sample question here based on our training outcome. How do you know that the shirts are in the correct order? Okay, and so I've got, these are just a knowledge check, and this is based on something that I gave as a why piece of information in my instruction. The stack of shirts are placed on top of the shirt you folded and added to stack. The shirt you looked at is placed on top of the stack. The shirt is placed within the stack of shirts. And I've indicated with a correct, with a double asterisk, the correct answer. Okay, so we go and move this into building our actual product. We'll be using the A, in our case, as the correct answer. That'll be given the correct answer feedback. Okay, so that's what you're going to be focusing on for this coming week. I know that it's a short period of time. The amount that I planned this to go a certain way, and life just got in the way, to be honest. So I know that this is late coming to you, and I know this activity is late to coming to you. Hopefully it's something that you can get started reviewing through for our class on Tuesday. Also, when you look inside of this week's module, you will see a number of interactive learning objects that I have built for today's class to allow you to go through, and I want you to try to figure out, what is the goal? What is the training outcome from the project? And you'll see it inside of our course for this particular week. So as you go through those, I want you to click on them, participate with them, look at the different ways that things are done in an online environment, because that's something new to you. If you have done primarily face-to-face training, or not just face-to-face training, but if you've done training in real time, basically synchronous or even asynchronous, where you are the guide. So the idea with it is that the students or the learner gets their feedback from you. Well, in this case, we're designing learning objects where Everything needs to be done in advance. You, as the developer of your project, would never come in contact with your learner. So that's the key thing to take away. There is no opportunity to give feedback onto it. So we have to design all that in advance. And so you'll see from the examples that I have placed inside of our course that a couple of different strategies or a couple of different ways for you to see how that's performed. And one of the things you're also going to notice is that there's one that's a discovery learning process. So right now we're doing a very directive learning process. We're giving the steps. Okay, we're teaching them through the steps. We've identified the need and we're giving them steps. In our class, one of the ones that I have in there actually is a discovery process where the information is not listed as steps, but the learner discovers the answers through the choices that they make. And we're going to be talking about that in our next class session. So thank you very much, everybody, for being understanding of just life in general here. And we will pick it up in class and we'll go from there. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.